Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast. Today I wanted to talk to you about something disturbing that I have noticed. Recently I was watching some serial killer interviews on YouTube. Sexual homicide, which is another name for serial murder, has been something I've researched and studied on for more than 20 years. It's always been an interest of mine, and to be honest, it's probably helped me understand narcissists and psychopaths a little more. Of course, not all psychopaths are serial killers, but all serial killers are definitely psychopaths, and as listeners of my show know, all psychopaths are narcissists. I call them end-stage narcissists because narcissism is a spectrum, starting with healthy narcissism like balanced self-esteem and reasonable self-preservation, and ending at psychopathy. Antisocial personality disorder, or psychopathy, is what you get when narcissism is taken to its absolute limit, when it is not possible to be more narcissistic. And just to be clear, sociopath and psychopath and terms like that are not actually clinical terms. They are not a diagnosis. People use those terms, but they're not clinical or medical terms. The correct term or diagnosis would be antisocial personality disorder. Now, upon reading the comments on those types of videos, the videos about serial killers and their interviews and things like that, usually we'll find comments about how disgusting and horrible these people are and things of that nature. These types of comments are an appropriate response to the horror that is serial homicide. You would expect people to react that way. However, there are a few killers who seem to inspire a different type of response, and one of them is admitted serial killer and necrophile Edmund Kemper. Kemper is really only slightly different than other serial killers in a few ways, but people seem to believe that these differences are very, very important. One of the big ones would be that Kemper eventually killed the source of his frustration. That would be his mother. Most serial killers do not do that. Whoever the original source of the anger is usually safe from them. It's often their mother or their wife or their girlfriend. Usually a serial killer will not do anything to that person. Usually they kill innocent proxies or stand-ins for that person, people who have done nothing to them and who they don't even know. The manner in which Edmund Kemper killed his mother was particularly atrocious, and the things he did with her body after her death are even worse. The other thing that sets Kemper apart is his IQ. Kemper consistently tested at well above average on IQ tests. On one, he scored 136. On a later one, he scored 145, which is somewhat uncommon. Most people's IQ tends to go down as they get older. And some reports actually cite a third test that scored him at 165. Regardless of the actual number, he's a very smart guy, and it becomes apparent the second that he opens his mouth. He's also open, humorous, charming, polite. He has insights into his behavior and his crimes, and he shares them willingly. He freely admits everything. That's why the behavioral science unit at the FBI has conducted so many interviews with him. He has been a literal goldmine of information regarding the phenomenon of serial murder. The problem, though, is that Kemper's act is a little too good. Upon reading the comments, we see the overwhelming opinion that this man is a victim, a decent guy who just happens to have done something terrible. If you're familiar with his case, then you know that his mother was reportedly absolutely atrocious to him and was probably a narcissist herself, if you believe what he says. Now, that's really the kicker, because most people do seem to believe him. And in all likelihood, it's probably true. His mother probably did treat him the way that he says that she did. However, the idea that people would just automatically believe a narcissist, a psychopath, someone who has admitted to killing multiple people, is a little hard to believe. They seem to believe that he's just misunderstood. He's a man who values human life and has good in him. There was even the opinion offered by somebody that, quote, psychopathy means you are predisposed to be disingenuous and dishonest when it's self-serving. It does not mean you are incapable of being genuine. Incorrect. This is a fundamental, even dangerous misunderstanding of the psychopathic or the antisocial personality. Psychopaths see everything in terms of how it benefits them. Therefore, everything they do is self-serving. They are absolutely not capable of being genuine because they are not capable of seeing things any other way. That's why they're considered psychopaths. Anything they say or do that seems to contradict that is a lie. If we watch Kemper's earlier interviews and read his earlier statements from the 70s and the 80s, we see that he's much more smooth and polished in his interviews 20 years later. He has learned what to say and how to say it. It's an act. There is zero meaningful humanity in these people. None at all. Now, as listeners of my show know, ordinarily I don't judge people for buying into a narcissist's manipulations because narcissists are very good manipulators. It happens to many people and it can literally happen to anybody. Narcissists are wolves in sheep's clothing. But in the case of serial killers, it's already known that this person has engaged in vile, despicably cruel behavior. Murder, dismemberment, decapitation, necrophilia, cannibalism, perversions, and not just once. Over and over and over. In this case, the wolf is not in sheep's clothing. He is not hiding. He's naked before your very eyes. To believe this person to be capable of valuing human life it's laughable, it's foolish, it's dangerous. To believe that is to buy into the manipulations of a psychopath. It's buying into the mask of humanity that this person has had decades to perfect. It's all a lie. And the idea that people are buying into it is dangerous and frightening. I'll say it again. There is no meaningful humanity in these people. What you're seeing is a very clever mimic. It's your own humanity reflected back at you. It is not real. What's the most disturbing about this phenomenon, and it isn't just Edmund Kemper, we see it with other serial killers, and we see it with people's loved ones. And what's disturbing is that people are blatantly choosing to ignore reality here. They are choosing to ignore the narcissist's own words and blatant actions in favor of their own misguided idea that this person seems like an okay guy. They are letting their feelings override their common sense and intellectual understanding. This is very scary, and it begs the question, if people can be manipulated into doing that by a virtual stranger, a person they've never even met, a man they know has engaged in inhuman, despicable acts, how can they then be expected to see through or resist the manipulations of their loved ones? For someone like myself, who takes educating others about these human predators really, really seriously, that's a very troubling question. It's worrying. Now, of course, it's different when the person has actually done something to you personally, which Kemper obviously has not, but that also means there's an emotional attachment to the person as well that makes it that much harder to resist. On this particular video, there was a lot of debate in the comments section about whether Edmund Kemper is even a narcissist at all. He most certainly is, by the way. In his earlier videos, you can see the smugness and the self-satisfaction with having gotten away with it, with having gotten these girls to trust him with some of the horrible things that he has done. He covers it up better later, but in the earlier videos and statements, it's very obvious. It's my position that only a narcissist thinks their feelings or desires are important enough to kill somebody over. In the words of Dr. Park Dietz regarding serial murderers, quote, "His orgasm is more important than your life." Edmund Kemper himself has stated many times that he killed women because he was sexually frustrated and because he was angry. Not the women he killed, they did nothing to him and they meant nothing to him. They were simply tools that he used to work out his sexual frustration and anger. Now, those are his words. I killed them because I was sexually frustrated and I was angry. And he has said them many times. People arguing for his intrinsic humanity were apparently either unaware of that or they didn't believe him when he said it in the video that they watched, because I was asked how I could possibly think that, that his orgasm is more important than another person's life. How could I possibly think that could be true of Edmund Kemper, this man who is so obviously cordial, intelligent, polite, considerate, remorseful, which is a joke? So I countered with my own question. What is the value you think this man places on a person's life whose only function is to donate a body and body parts he can have sex with after they're dead? There was no answer. I asked that question to more than one person and nobody answered me. It's this fundamental misunderstanding of the narcissistic personality that plays such a role in victimization these days. People just do not understand what a narcissist is. They think it's someone who's in love with themselves, or vain, or arrogant, or mean, or bratty, or spoiled. It can certainly present as those things, but the idea that people who don't act like that aren't narcissists is absolutely, almost tragically false. Then on the flip side, narcissism has become almost a catchphrase these days, with everybody and every single thing labeled as narcissistic. This is just as dangerous, and it's just as much of a misunderstanding of the reality here. There are no 8 different types of narcissists. There are no 10 different types of narcissists. There are only 2, and they are not that different. Narcissists are empty vessels with nothing pushing them onward through life but the desire for more and a pathological jealousy of and anger toward anybody they perceive as having something they don't. They are human wrecking balls bent on destroying themselves and everyone else they can. They are mimics. They are chameleons. What they are not are people who value human life. Don't get played. Always remember what these people are. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by the Little Shaman. That's me, the Little Shaman. As always, I look forward to your comments, stories, and questions. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.